right, so we're on this series on women on the outside. Love it. To be a woman in the ancient world was already to be on the outside. It was a man's world. It has been pretty much that way throughout history. But these are women who are particularly outside. It's so important that we assume that position as we read the Bible. Try to enter into the mind of the outsider, because I don't know if you noticed this or not, but God's got a special heart for the outsiders, the marginalized, the poor, the oppressed, the people who aren't winning in the world system. And those are the people who tend to get God the best. People who are on the inside and comfortable and are winning at the world's game tend to not be as needy of God and tend to not really get God. And so we always have to assume the position of the outsider, the alien, the foreigner, the person who's not winning. And so these are women who are on the outside of the winning side of society, and we're looking at how they view Jesus. And their perspective, I think, unveils some very beautiful things, as you've already been seeing. The lady I'm going to speak about here today is one of my favorites. I always forget to clean my glasses before I get up here. When I get up here, I see all the smudges. You see those smudges? And so then I spend half the sermon cleaning my glasses. That's really bad etiquette. If you take any class in seminary on speaking, they'll say, number one rule, don't clean your glasses on stage. Like I obey those rules all the time. Rule number 2, wear shoes. Rule number 3, think about what you're going to say before you get on stage. Okay, so it's... All right, so this is a passage of Scripture that has just hit me hard at a number of points in my life. It just has ministered to me, and I'll share more about that a little bit. It's found in Luke chapter 7. It's about a lady who crashes a party, not just a lady, but a lady of the night, a prostitute who crashes not just a party, but a Pharisee's party. So we're calling this message Party Crasher. And we're all called to be party crashers in different ways, as you'll see here in a little bit. So it starts in verse 36. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. We'll pause here. When we think of Pharisees, we usually think of a negative person, a negative thing. It's kind of a pejorative term because we think about the Pharisees through the lens of the Gospels where they play a negative role. But if you were a first century Jewish person, Pharisee was... You look up to the Pharisees. These were the heroes. These were the guardians of truth and righteousness. And so to have a dinner party of Pharisees is a big deal. These are the muckety-mucks of the religious world. These are the high and mighties who are getting together to talk. And they invite Jesus, Simon invited Jesus to be part of this conversation because these were their gatekeepers, right? And there's rumors that this guy might be the Messiah, or at least a prophet. And so they got to get the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And already in the book, in the Gospels, we're seeing he tends to get the thumbs down because he doesn't conform to their expectations. But this is going to be an interrogation of Jesus. So they invite Jesus to this party. One of the things you got to know is that the translation here says that he reclined at the table. At the table actually isn't in the Greek. It just says he reclined. And why that's significant is this. And we'll see it plays an important role here in a moment. But the way that they would customarily have dinners in those days is they didn't sit down on chairs at a table like we do. They would usually lay on a carpet on the ground or rug on the ground and have a meal in front of them and lean on one elbow and eat with the other. Not eat with the other elbow, eat with the other hand that was freed up. So you're leaning and eating. Or sometimes in wealthier households, they would actually have couches for this, and the couches would be around a table, and they'd be eating. That's probably what's happening here. So just know they're laying down so their feet are outward. They're not under a table. So then it says, a woman in the town who lived a sinful life, and most scholars agree that that phrase, lived a sinful life, is a delicate way of referring to a prostitute. She learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. That's in the present tense. So she hears about Jesus being in town as they're doing it. So he's there eating, and she doesn't have a plan. She's just going to this house. And as she stood behind him, at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with tears. See, that's why you need to know that he was reclining. She was standing behind him. She didn't have to go under a table to wash or to cry on his feet. She was just standing behind him, and her tears fell, and that's how his feet got wet. Then she wiped them with her hair and kissed them and poured perfume on them. This lady, one confirmation that she is most likely a prostitute is that she has this alabaster jar of perfume. Probably, if she was a peasant prostitute, which is in all likelihood she was, this is probably the most expensive thing she owned. And it kind of confirms that she was a prostitute, because this is one of the ways that you would advertise you're a prostitute is by being real perfumed up. And so they would carry it with them. And when a client was coming around, they'd put some on. I'm told that if you went back in ancient times, if time travel was possible, which it isn't, by the way, and 12 Monkeys is a stupid television show, but if it was possible, if you could go back in time, even a couple hundred years, let alone 2,000 years ago, the first thing you notice, I've read this, that the first thing you would notice would be the odor. Because we are like so hygienic now. Some more than others for sure, but we are generally pretty hygienic. And see, this is a time before anyone had invented showers or running water in the houses. Taking a bath was a luxury, and no one had invented deodorant yet, or body spray, or toothpaste, or toothbrushes. The concept of brushing your teeth. The wealthy people used to have these little picks that they would use, but peasants didn't. That was a rare thing. How they had conversations back then, I don't know, but they managed it somehow. How they reproduce is even a greater mystery. But no toilet paper yet, no bidets. It's just they were ripe. So to be able to smell good was a real plus. That was a turn on. Man, you smell not as gangrenous as the other person. Selling point. So they'd be perfumed up. Really selling point. And so then she takes this. She hears about this party going on, and she crashes it. She wasn't invited. She just crashes the party. Women weren't invited to these things anyways, let alone prostitutes. She just invites herself, goes in there. No decent man would be seen with her in public. And if you're going to have any contact with her, it's going to be a clandestine meeting in the middle of the night, and you sneak out the back door. So here she is in the middle of this party. So just imagine the scene now. She crashes this party, prostitute, all among these powerful holy men. She's behind Jesus, standing at his feet, and she's sobbing. Out of gratitude and love, she's just sobbing. And her tears are falling on his feet. Now, back then, they wore sandals or just walked barefoot. And they didn't have any paved roads, so they walk on dirt. Your feet get really, really dirty. Usually, a host would have a basin of water that when you came in, you'd wash your feet and have a towel there to dry them off. But for some reason, Simon didn't have that. So Jesus has very, very dirty feet, and so her tears are falling on very, very dirty feet. What happens to dirt when it gets wet? It turns to mud. And so now his feet are getting muddy. Imagine that. And so she kneels down. I just love this story. And begins to wipe up the mud with her hair. A woman's hair in first century Jewish culture was her glory. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 11. A woman's hair is her glory. It's your honor. They would wear it very long. Some Jewish women wouldn't cut their hair at all. It'd be very long. And she takes his hair, her glory, and begins to wash his feet, trying to clean them up. And then she begins to kiss his feet. And then she anoints his feet with that jar of perfume. I'm sure she didn't have a clue what she was going to do with that perfume when she went to the party. I suspect she just got word that Jesus is coming to town, and she just looks around. She looks around at the most expensive thing she's got, the most precious thing she's got, and she grabs it. There's no plan here. It's just going to unfold as it unfolds. But it ends up that this tool of her trade, the vehicle of sin, now becomes the vehicle of worship. That's what God does, isn't it? Isn't it beautiful? He takes something that used to be used for sin, and now it's going to be used as an act of worship as she anoints his feet.